Welcome to the DFS Build MLB edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith, ready to go over this 8-game MLB slate. I pushed out a video for the early slate. Don't know how well it did because, it was 2 games, and I was like, hey, Dylan Cease is a good play, and then he gets rocked by the Braves. So that's just the nature of 2-game slates and baseball, apparently. But anyways, so if we help you out at all today, give this video a like and also consider subscribing to the channel. This video is also sponsored by DFS Hero. So if you are in the need of a lineup tool for projections, ownership, all that fun stuff, give them a shot. You actually get a discount, 15% off if you use our link in the video description below. All right, Taylor, let's dive right into it. Obviously up top, we're looking at pitchers first here. Pablo Lopez didn't work out so well the last time we went with him, I believe. I think that was his last start where he got absolutely ransacked here. Yeah, by the Yankees. And, the Yankees will do that to you. But he looks pretty good here against the Nats. He's got the best projection. He's not egregiously priced at 9.5K. He is in the optimal lineup at 32%. Coming in with pretty good ownership at 27%, but I feel like this is a building block, definitely among at least at pitching, and I really like him. How about you?
Yeah, I think he looks good. I don't know if he'll be a core play for me, but certainly like him more than the 10K guys on this slate. He's a little underpriced in theory. Not the most menacing opponent. Washington is kind of average for strikeouts, but not much power there. Someone like Gallo is going to rack up their strikeout rate as a whole. So, yeah, fine spot. I might be around even with the field, but not really taking a hard stand either way on him like I did last time.
Yeah, I think last time you actually were more on the Yankee side, and I played Pablo, so that was really fun for one of us. The Nats come with a collective 22% whiff rate against righties, so I don't see anything too deadly for him here. But another guy that's kind of standing out due to price mostly and form, I guess, would be Framber Valdez. His 8.8K seems like a pretty good price for what he can do, and obviously the Halos traditionally have been striking out a good deal. That's not what's happening with the projected lineup, only 21%. But in theory, Valdez looks like a pretty good play here at that price. How are you feeling about him?
Yeah, he's the one I'm getting to the most. Just I think it is a price thing. Projects similarly to Lopez, and you're getting a discount of $700, so it comes in handy. Yeah, it's just not the most threatening lineup. They don't have bad numbers so far this season as a whole, but I'm not scared of them. I do think he's a bit underpriced. Not the best strikeout guy or strikeout matchup, but today on this slate, I think he's probably worthy of being the SP1.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it due to price. He's only whiffing righties at 20%, which is a little bit annoying considering I'm sure they're going to go a little bit righty heavy with this lineup as much as they can anyways. But yeah, he looks good. Yamamoto's a bit pricey here. You said another 10K guy. Oh, Sonny Gray, I bet. Where's he at? Oh, there he is, 10K flat. So I'm not really super into Yamamoto or Sonny Gray. I guess if I had to pick one of them, it'd be Yamamoto. Just at home. It's not like Arizona is an easy matchup by any means. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not really feeling either of them. I think right off the bat, I would just go turn to Pablo or Valdez at this point on this slate.
Yeah, they're both pretty pricey for the spots they're in. I guess Gray might be a bit more trustworthy. Nobu may not be a guy that spikes a lot of huge strikeout games. He seems a little pricey to me. I'm more likely to live in the 8 to 9K range with Valdez, Lopez, Tanner Houck, Taj Bradley, guys like that today.
Yeah, Taj Bradley is probably the most interesting of those guys down low at 8K flat. He's coming in at 24% in the optimal. He is going to be owned at 27%. But Boston really isn't that scary, as we know this year, and they have a 23% collective whiff rate against righties. He does have some alarming things here to consider. 200 ISO against lefties. Very small sample size on the year, though. But at the price, I'm definitely leaning Taj Bradley more than Boston. That said, if the ownership's going to be that heavy, 27%, I believe he's tied for basically the second highest owned pitcher of the slate. I don't really love the park. but I would definitely sprinkle in some Red Sox stacks just because if those issues again with lefty power are a thing suddenly this year, then I'd want some of those lefties like Duran and Devers, So, but yeah, mostly on Taj Bradley. Any interested in Marcus Stroman, Mr. Groundball himself at 8.3K?
A little, only because Seattle's just striking out a ton.
Right.
Like, over 30%, 28% against righties on the year. So that alone puts him in play. I think Bradley's a better option. I think there's more upside there. I think Houck, Houck is someone that I like quite a bit. Pretty high ground ball rate. Tampa Bay, pretty high ground ball offense. So good spot for him. It is the second time in a row they've faced each other, but I think that's okay. And then Waka for 6.6, I think if you want to punt, I think he's okay against Detroit at home.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think Stroman is a price and matchup play. He himself does not project awesomely. He's just okay relative to the slate. And just in general, like you said, he's not really a strikeout guy. He's a ground ball pitcher. And the Mariners are kind of not a ground ball team. They're going to try to get the ball in the air. They're going to do that or strike out, basically. So I don't really want Stroman, but I think he's fine for those reasons. Nobody else really stands out here. You mentioned Waka. That's okay just because the price. The Brewers are coming in as a chalky stack. We'll get to that in a second. Are you into the idea of leveraging that and actually playing Ryan Weathers at 5.5 in a pitcher-friendly park, or are you just going to stay away from that?
Yeah, I think you can make a case for Ross and Weathers in that same game.
Yeah, I like Ross for sure.
Yeah, obviously Miami's not a menacing lineup. Weathers himself doesn't project that great, but he's cheap enough to where I think it's interesting with teams like New York and LA and Houston on the slate to pay up for. Going down to Weathers, I think, is fine. But, he's not going to blow you away with a projection or likely a score. But for the dollar, I think it's okay.
Yep, agreed. Anybody else on the board here that is calling to you, or did we kind of cover all the guys you like?
Yeah, I think you can kind of cast a wide net. Guys like Gilbert, Olsen, Kramer, Detmers aren't really on my radar today. So, yeah, I think we've covered it pretty well.
All right, let's move over to the stacks then. Just as a quick summary, obviously we like Pablo Lopez, we like Valdez. We're into Taj Bradley, Tanner Houck. And then you mentioned, I like Joe Ross, and you mentioned Michael Waka. Not to say 5.8K Joe Ross is some just awesome play. I just think the price point in that park against the Marlins, I think it's worth it. All right, so let's go look at the stacks. Right now, we do have the Twins and Brewers basically tied for the chalkiest stacks of the slate. Let's talk about the Brewers real quick. Obviously, we kind of talked about Ryan Weathers at 5.5K in that park being an interesting leverage play if the Brewers are indeed going to be chalk. I'm just not going to play the chalk on this slate. I'm not going to play the Twins or Brewers. Even I came in liking the Twins, but if they're both going to be really, really owned, I'm just going to go do something else. That said, I don't want to just say that and deter everybody from playing two teams that are in pretty good spots. I mean, Weathers can definitely be had, mostly from the right side of the plate. This year, 179 ISO, only a 15% K rate against righties. Last year is 14% with a 228 ISO against righties. So they definitely have some guys who have some pop. I mean, you got Gary Sanchez, William Contreras, Willie Adames. So they have some dudes. So chalk aside, are you in agreement here that the Brewers look good?
No. I don't. It's not a good park. It's not that good of a lineup, honestly. Once you get past Contreras, Adames, Yelich, it drops off considerably after that in terms of quality. It's a good mix of pricey and cheap hitters, so it's easy to stack them. But you mentioned Sanchez and Contreras. You can't play them together for one thing. They're both catcher only. Joey Ortiz, I don't think is a bad value. Decent hitter with power upside, multi-position eligible. But if they're going to be owned, I'm just not going to play them. I think it's very easy to fade them in this spot.
Right. I think just like if you look at the numbers right now, you're 100% right. Like the bottom half of their lineup doesn't look imposing against lefties specifically. But for me, it's just chalk plus not a great park for hitting. So to me, that's an easy call. And the Brewers are definitely going to score 12 runs now, but that's why we're fading. So let's look at the Twins real quick. They're obviously tied for as far as stack ownership percentage goes. Let's see who they're facing. Mitchell Parker. I don't really know anything about Mitchell Parker. Is he a top prospect or just a guy?
Nope.
Okay,
Just
so
a
that
guy.
probably explains why the system likes the Twins here. The Twins have a good amount of power. So they're facing a guy who's small sample size, but 20% whiff rate against lefties, only 18 against righties, 356 WOBA against lefties. So doesn't really walk too many guys, but he's not going to strike people out either. Nothing very imposing for the Twins at all, but to me, they're chalk. So that's a good enough reason for me to go do something else.
It's also not that good of a lineup. Like, you feel good about Jeffers presumably leading off at catcher, but beyond that, like Buxton's not really what he used to be. I'd say the same of Correa. I guess Miranda's not a horrible value, but he doesn't project that great anyway. Then you got guys like Margot and Vasquez and Willie Castro. Like, I just don't really see much to get excited about, especially if they're going to be 15 to 20% owned each. Like, that's another team that I think is a really easy fade at ownership today.
Yeah, I really usually like to play the Twins against righties because they just have so many good lefty power bats. That's just the way I like to use them. So I guess because of the pitcher, you can do it, but you're right. The lineup doesn't look that great, and they're really chalky. So having said that, if we're going away from the Twins and Brewers right away, that alone gets us different, but we need to fall in love with a couple stacks to like make us feel good about it. So who's the number one stack that stands out to me? I mean, the Dodgers obviously with a 5.22 implied run total here. That's pretty interesting. Astros with 4.83. Royals look really good with 4.64. And none of these stacks are owned. So like, I'm assuming you like somebody out of that trio. And if not, who's the other stack that you're eyeing right now?
Yeah, those three look good. Casey and Houston are second and third for me right now in terms of ownership. The team that's coming in the highest is Seattle for me. Never feels great with all their whips, but park upgrade. They're also cheap. Julio for 4.8 is the most expensive guy you're getting to. After that, Raleigh 4.3, Rojas 4K. Everyone else is under 4. And Stroman, like we said, not the most overpowering guy. Pitches to contact usually, and they're not getting ownership. Good park for home runs. I think it's pretty good value stack today.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the logic whatsoever. Obviously, anytime you get a park upgrade and head to Yankee Stadium, and when you're not really a ground ball offense going against a ground ball pitcher, all those things can be a recipe for disaster for said pitcher. I'm probably just going to use that collection of information to just not really play Stroman that much. Like I said, I like a sprinkling of Stroman just because the price and the whiffs that are there. But the park and Seattle's power definitely give me cause for pause, as we say. But there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, Houston's just so damn annoying because they look so good here, especially with the reverse splits for Reed Detmers. 10% walk rate against lefties this year, 255 ISO, 350 WOBA, 36% fly ball rate, 48% hard hit rate. I mean, lefty on lefty crime, it's going to be rampant tonight. So I don't know if the full stack is going to grade out as well as we think it will, but you can definitely look at Kyle Tucker and Alvarez for sure. And then if you want to go full stack with Astros, that's totally fine. Dodgers look awesome. If they're not going to be owned, I don't mind paying up for a really nice looking Dodger stack. And then, kind of like you said, just ignoring those really expensive pitchers because we don't really like them anyways. And then if that's so crazy to me that like a really nice Dodger stack in a good spot is just automatically going to make you different from the field. So that's interesting for sure.
Yeah, it might be a price thing. Like the cheap pitching is pretty sus today.
Yeah, but hey, if you're going to go down the Joe Ross road, you got no problems. You got no problems getting Dodgers in here. All right, as we go down, we did mention the Royals. I do like the Royals and this game in general, which makes me kind of like the Tigers a little bit. Obviously that would be an interesting leverage stack on Waka, assuming he's owned as like kind of like the SP2 of the slate, possibly. Warranted. It's a good matchup for Waka too, 23% K rate and all that, but the wind's blowing out in this game, and I think it's warm weather. Let me double check that.
It was yesterday. I assume it's similar today.
Yeah, 81 degrees. The wind's blowing out. Only 6 miles per hour, but still, I think it's possibly a pretty good environment for bats. So the Tigers are okay. I think the Tigers are fine. Don't really have a lot of faith in the Tigers, but the Royals look pretty good. Reese Olson has a 10% walk rate against lefties. His strikeout rate dips a little bit against righties. So just across the board, there could be some runs to be had for KC here. Not like Reese Olson's like a guy we go out of our way to avoid either. So yeah, I like KC quite a bit. Not really seeing anybody else that stands out. I do think the Halos are kind of a fun leverage stack on Valdez if you're not going to own him a lot, or if you want to just kind of pull.
Doesn't sound fun to me.
Well, there's a lot of right-handed power there, so I think it's just kind of interesting. But their run total at 3.17 is obviously not very fun. So
Speaking
all right,
of fun, I would say Miami, perhaps.
Don't you dare put that on Joe Ross. Don't you dare.
It's just a value thing, I think. Like several sub 4K hitters, mostly 4K. Jazz and De La Cruz, the only guys over 4. Don't hate that as a secondary play, but certainly not a 5-man. Probably more of a mini stack.
Any interest in the mega low-owned Yankees against Logan Gilbert?
Yeah. Not getting to Gilbert, so might as well play some of them. It's obviously an elite lineup. Ownership not going to be there. Like we've said, all these elite offenses are just going overlooked with people playing like the Brewers and the Twins instead. So
right.
Happy to find the cash to get to some of these guys if I can.
Yeah. Working all the way down to the bottom here, a little bit interesting, kind of in the vein of these elite offenses that are going overlooked. You have the Diamondbacks with the lowest implied total. Well, that's not true, but they're the lowest owned overall stack of the slate because they're facing Yamamoto. And they have the Orioles coming in just ahead of them. So that's kind of interesting to me because obviously we know they have a lot of power. The Orioles are facing Sonny Gray, but he has proven that he can be had, and we're not going to use him either. So it does make sense to perhaps target him a little bit. And then Arizona, obviously the matchup is not good, but they're certainly capable. So any interest in getting a sprinkling of the O's and D-backs?
Not really the O's. Not a fan of the park, and don't really want to pick on Gray if I don't have to. Yamamoto's been a little more shaky. I think they could get to him. Arizona looks a bit better. Good park. Obviously, they're not going to be owned at all, like 1% maybe. So it's just another strong, talented offense that's going to be pretty overlooked today.
Yeah, for as good as Yamamoto has been, 217 ISO against righties, 50% hard hit rate against righties. Not great. Obviously, they are a predominantly lefty power-heavy lineup, but they do have some righties to throw at them for sure. That could take advantage of that, perhaps. Not at all saying you need to load up on Diamondbacks here because I think that's a little silly, but for somebody like your secondary stacks or just stacks that you get to as you run a lot of lineups, I think low-owned good offenses, like you said, are very, very interesting, and I would definitely want to prioritize them over, I don't know, the Nationals or the Marlins, even though you kind of like the Marlins against Joe Ross. All right, so for me, I'm probably going pretty Dodgers heavy here. I just like they're only coming in with a 6% ownership as a stack. They got the best implied run total of the slate. Good park, good matchup. I think they just have it's a bullpen game for Arizona, basically. So I don't know. I think it just feels a little cute to go other ways, and I definitely don't want to eat the Twins and Brewers chalk. And then if I'm not playing a lot of Dodgers, I'm with you on the Astros for sure, and I really like KC as well. Where are you going overall? If you're casting a shallow net here, as far as like reducing it to like a top 3, who are your main stacks that you like?
Probably Seattle at the top. Just the combo of value and park and stuff I think is pretty interesting. Houston after that. Detmer's kind of power struggles and stolen base issues over the years. And probably LA after that. Just I think it's an opener and then Slade Ciccone behind him. So
Yes.
not a very imposing
Yes.
right-hander coming in.
I didn't even know that he was the next guy up. That's going to be great. That
Yeah.
just reaffirms everything I was feeling about this slate. Okay, that is going to do it for us. Hopefully that helps you out a little bit, helps your process. If it does, please give this video a like and also subscribe to the channel so you get more videos just like this. Also, don't hesitate to drop into the comment section if you have last-minute questions. We're not always around right before lock, but if we see it, we'll try to pop in and give you a little extra help. Thanks for tuning in and good luck.